Our next speaker, I'm particularly delighted to introduce to you because she's from my neck of the woods, Aberdeenshire. She's Lilias Ahmeira, who some of you may have heard her name Lilias Curtin, she was previously, and she's really worked at the forefront of energy medicine for 10 years. She ran a very successful clinic in London. She had lots of celebrities who came to that clinic, so was a bit of a media star in those days. She's now moved to the quieter and tranquil area where we are in Lumphanan. She's a mum to 3 boys, one of whom has autism. She's always looking for groundbreaking ways of taking people forward, and she really feels that addressing symptoms is a bit disrespectful to the person, and she's going to be telling us more about that too this morning. She's going to speak to us about her journey as a parent and as a practitioner. So, Lilias Ahmeira.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's an absolute privilege to be here. I'm very, very excited indeed. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but I've been told I want a strict 30-minute guideline, and I'm sure if all of you have been partying and dancing last night and having a few berries, you're going to be desperate for your coffee. So I promised to stay with the 30 minutes. I'd also like to congratulate the organisers of the conference, particularly for this afternoon's lineup, because it's such fabulous speakers. And we need to hold the men's attention this afternoon because the Six Nations is on. Anyhow, it's been quite a journey. We've all had a journey. And I hope a little of what I can say will come from a slightly different viewpoint from some of the other people here today, being from an energetic point of view, and some other people here might resonate with it. Aha, who am I? First of all, as all of us are, we are parents, and that is where one has to have one's main focus at the end of the day. We can all have wonderful things we want to do in our lives, but we can never lose sight of the fact that we have people at home who are foremost in our lives. I have 3. Seamus is 11. Tom is now 9. He was severely autistic at 2. He's now borderline. And George, 3.5, who creates complete mayhem in my life and reminds me not to keep life too serious. Secondly, I am a specialist in autonomic response testing. And I follow the work of Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, who some of you may be familiar with. You'll find that in your goodie bags there is a CD, and on that is a talk with Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt and Makola, who many of you may be familiar with. There is some phenomenal information on there, so I really implore all of you to listen to it at some point. I'm one of only 2 practitioners in the country who specialize in body work of autonomic response testing. There are a lot of other autonomic response testing dentists, and one of the primary areas that we look at is removing heavy metal toxicity from the body. This is Tom. As you can see, he's a bonny chap, to use a local Scottish term. I'm getting into the Scottish language. I've only been up there 18 months. I'm picking up a few terms. And he's been my driving force. I'd already started to get into the world of energy medicine, and then Tom came along and turned my life completely upside down, as all of your children will have done, and suddenly you realize that perhaps your focus in life is going to change a little. His background. I knew right from the start that something was wrong. And all of the lovely doctors around go, "It's fine, you've got a fabulous baby there, don't worry." Mothers, trust your instincts. He didn't talk till he was 4. He had no eye contact. He was headbanging. And I'm sure many of you have seen it, or if you haven't, to see your child walking along a wall just going bang, 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 it is soul-destroying. You don't know what to do. Nobody seems to be able to give you any answers, and you're left to deal with it. Potty training was a nightmare. Didn't happen until he was 5 or 6. Taking the nappy off, excrement on the walls, horrific. And it all stops with us, the mothers. How many fathers have cleared it up? Oh, well done, sir. Oh, a few others. I congratulate you. Bedwetting. You know, how many times have we got up in one night to change the sheets? 2, 3, and we just keep doing it. And we know that one day it's going to work. And on top of that, I had a very, very aggressive, very unhappy little boy. After much fighting, we finally received a diagnosis of being severely autistic. And he was statemented around 3 years of age. And I mean, again, we have the diagnosis, it's a real shock, and then you have to fight tooth and nail to get attention, to get somebody to give us some service, to get somebody to give us some help. It shouldn't be this way. The emotional roller coaster. And this is a side that a lot of people don't talk about, and it's really, really important. Why me? Why were we singled out to be parents of these special children? And we look around at all of our friends who have children who are growing normally and performing, and we look at our child and go, we're doing everything we can for you. Why me? It hurts, and it still hurts today. Then we have the guilt. Have I done something wrong? Am I living in the wrong place? Have I eaten the wrong foods? Did I do something awful in a past life? You can't turn back the clock. What is, and the guilt doesn't serve us. What we can do is to go forward passionately, knowing that we can find a way forward. And then we have the system to fight. When I got my diagnosis, I was with a Harley Street pediatrician, and she meant it kindly. I mean, I knew something was wrong, but you kind of don't want the label, but you kind of know a label's coming. And trying to be sympathetic, she said, "Sorry, love, there's not a lot we can do." I was incensed. I was raging. And then they went on to say, don't expect him to go to university. Don't expect him to amount to anything. How dare anybody in the professional system put limits or boundaries on any of our children? They are capable of so much. And so I now say to the professionals, watch this space and learn, because I have learned so much. There's always another way to skin a cat, and sometimes we just have to suck it and see. But if you resonate with something, then trust it. And if you feel it's not going to do any harm, and you feel you might get some progress from it, then have a go. And then we have the anguish, the continual fight. Why me? The guilt, all of it goes on top. And the heartache. You go to a children's function and there's lots of other children doing the most amazing things, and your child isn't quite able to participate in the same way. What do? What we all do. You pick yourself up and you go on. The research is a minefield. Trust your instincts. Just coming here yesterday, I heard so many amazing things from people who passionately and vehemently believe their way is correct. But as parents, we're lay people. We don't always understand the science. We don't understand how it's going to affect our child. We don't always know what's going on in our child. And the research, you just don't know at times. The tests are phenomenal, but which one do you go for? So trust your instincts. And when you get a diagnosis or you're somewhere and suddenly something's happening and you don't understand it, you don't necessarily know where to go. So you have to sit with the situation for a while and explore what's going on and wait until something resonates with you, and trust your instincts. The first big step forward we had was the Sunderland University and urinary peptide test. Paul Shattuck, I think you were one of the first people I spoke to. thank you. It was a huge step forward, and it was the first sort of testing that I did. And sure enough, we were told we had to go on a gluten casein-free diet. This scared the living daylights out of me. I was going to have to go and read every packet when I went to a supermarket. I mean, how many times do you see casein appearing in a piece of bloody salami? It's everywhere. And I mean, it took me 4 to 6 months to get my mind around approaching it. And now people are talking about the specific carbohydrate diet. So again, there's a whole lot of things you might need to read labels for. I was thinking, pancakes for breakfast, rice flour, they're out. So again, trust your instincts. But you know, the gluten casein-free diet was fabulous when we started it. But also we had the emotional roller coaster. Gluten turns into glutamorphine, casein turns into casomorphine. My child's a heroin addict. This is his heroin, and I'm taking it away. And there he is, sitting in the corner of the room, banging his head, banging the floor, not wanting to eat anything, because he wants his fix. Then we have to not forget the aspartame in the MSG. It's everywhere. When you want to go out and eat something, it's everywhere. So the journey of suddenly taking these things out is very, very upsetting, mind-blowing, and your whole kitchen gets altered. But it is really, really worthwhile. Then we started to see huge differences. No more head banging. I used to go around with dark glasses because my gorgeous little boy would go, "Mummy, I love you." Bang! He'd get me just on the eye socket. And sometimes I'd go around with 2 shiners. I gave up wearing glasses because they were there all the time. And people kept going, "Is everything all right at home? You know, husband?" "No, it's my 3-year-old. But it went on for a long time. He was so much calmer. I could relate to him. This child started to interact with me. It was fabulous. You know, we then started to build a really wholesome relationship. His diet widened. Instead of having rigid 4 foods, I will not eat anything else, I tried to get him to eat vegetables. I thought, I'm really going to get this. He didn't eat for 3 days. I gave up. But when we started to bring a gluten casein-free diet in, he was prepared to try other foods and to look at things. And now he has a pretty good variety of foods that he eats, and it's not too much of a problem. The eye contact was wonderful. Really, really spectacular. We had speech, you know, he could concentrate, he could focus, he could be engaging. He could breathe, and less diarrhea. Alleluia. So how do you address everything as a layperson? You know, there's a specialist for viruses, there's a specialist for infections, parasites, fungi, heavy metal toxicity, bowel issues, behavior issues. Your pocket is only so deep. Well, I was very fortunate because I just started to learn autonomic response testing at the time. And it has absolutely been my saving grace because it has taken Tom from being severely autistic at 2 to borderline at 9. It is an advanced form of muscle testing using sympathetic resonance. Simple way to describe that is if you take a washing machine in a full spin cycle, and if you sit on it, you're going to resonate in sympathy with it. So we use sympathetic resonance to test things. This sophisticated diagnostic tool enables us to quantify what is the priority and test what is the best method and what the body likes. We are all individuals. Our children are individuals. We're all special, and we have to be treated this way. Very simply, if I take some mercury, and there are 4 different types, I can resonate the energy of that to the body and say, "Do you recognize this?" And the body goes, "Not half." So I can then take 4 or 5 different types of chlorella and say to the body, "Do you like this?" And the body goes, "Not really." Okay, do you like this brand? Oh, that's much better. Okay, fantastic. Okay, now if I bring the mercury in, will you cancel out that mercury with this chlorella? Yeah, but not in a great way. Okay, well, let's find another chlorella or another chelator that not only does the body really like, but we know it's going to do the job necessary. It's going to remove the mercury, and the body likes it, and it's not going to be going straight down the pan. It's enabled me to take, as I said, Tom from autistic, severely autistic at 2 to borderline at 9. And the only reason for that is I test everything. We've heard about some amazing enzymes today. I'm really excited. I can go and test whether he needs a yeast enzyme, whether he needs an enzyme that's filled with proteins that we're going to go after the proteins. I can now test what his body actually wants and when it wants it. How cool is that? It enables us to address the heavy metal toxicity. And this has been one of the biggest things that we've done, and it has been huge for us. The more of the metal that we have got out of my child, the more of him has been revealed to us. And that's really exciting. And the other area which has been hugely important is removing the electromagnetic frequencies in the house. Also helps to accelerate the recovery. The astrocytes in the brain are your intelligent brain cells. And they're the first things that are going to start to get damaged in our children. Repairing the astrocytes has been one of the most important things we have done, and I implore you to do some looking at this. They are responsible for creating the blood-brain barrier. Past the blood-brain barrier, the brain has a very poor immune system, and the astrocytes and the microglia are the only cellular defense the central nervous system has against invading microbes. And yet it is the first group of cells to be paralyzed by methyl and ethyl mercury. Now, I want to explain a little bit more about this. Your blood-brain barrier doesn't get formed until a child is 18 months old. So whatever is in mummy's gut and whatever is in her system is going to get passed over the placenta and go straight into the child's body. If you have a lot of electromagnetic frequencies in the house, this accelerates things hugely. And a lot of the information that I'm going to present next is courtesy of Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, so I have to give him a huge thank you. But they did an experiment, and they took petri dishes of bacteria, and they put them in a laboratory with a Faraday cage over it, so the electromagnetic frequencies could not get to it. And there were fluorescent lights, I think, in the room. There was a mobile phone sitting somewhere. There's a computer. There's a mobile phone mast somewhere else. So all of this stuff is in the room, but these petri dishes are being protected. And they measured the rate of growth from these organisms over a period of days. And then they took the lid off and just decided to look at how these things would grow with all of the interaction of the electromagnetic frequencies. Well, wake up, everybody. It accelerated 600%. Before we had electromagnetic frequencies in the world, we lived very nicely in harmony with yeasts and bacteria and molds and all these sorts of things. But the minute you bring in electromagnetic frequencies, if these things can get into the brain and they have electromagnetic frequencies around, you accelerate their growth 600%. We can no longer live in harmony with these things. And the area it attacks is the astrocytes, your intelligent blood cells, brain cells. A walkie-talkie phone that we all have in the house is equivalent to a 737 jumbo jet hovering over your house 24/7. So I implore you to think about putting your children into Faraday cages at night when they sleep. That is the time they need to heal. So give them the protection so they can. I'm not a doctor, but these are some of the things that we have used that Dr. Klinghardt has suggested and they have been very successful with Tom and with a number of the other patients that I have used. Chlorella pyrenodosa and vulgaris are two strains of chlorella which we use, which helps enormously to chelate various forms of heavy metal, particularly mercury. Matrix Metals is a homeopathic formula which does the same. Cilantro is Chinese parsley. It's a mobilizer of metals. And this is very important. It doesn't get metals out of the body. It mobilizes it out of the tissues to enable your chelator to collect it. Freeze-dried garlic is wonderful for getting rid of viruses and parasites and bacteria. Phospholipids enable things to go over a blood-brain barrier and helps to start repair some of the astrocytes. Your omega-3s you'll be familiar with. Juice Plus is something else that's very, very interesting. All it is 17 fruits and vegetables that have been juiced and freeze-dried. There's a great deal of peer research on it. And if you've got a child that doesn't want to eat fruits and vegetables, it comes in two formats. One is like a wine gums. I never call them anything other than sweeties. Great, you've got fruit and veg getting into your child. And in the capsule formula, then you can break the capsules open, you can put it into your food that they will eat, and because the body now starts to experience vegetables and things, it will then start to crave it, and slowly you can start introducing other fruits and vegetables into your child's diet, and it's an easier way of getting them to have a wider diet. Vitamin B12 has been mentioned, everybody knows how important it is. Quintessence is wonderful for cleaning out the lymphatic system. It's also very antiviral. Rhizols are a particular thing that Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt is very excited about at the moment because they have a castor oil base and they're herbal mixtures, and gamma and zeta are the ones that are predominantly used with our very special children. OSR, I'm not going to go into. Thank you, Boyd Haley. We love it because I'm sure he's going to talk about it a lot this afternoon. Transdermal magnesium has been wonderful because it enables us to put magnesium straight into the bloodstream by putting it onto the skin without it having to be absorbed elsewhere in the body. And the last things on here are so important. Faraday cages to help your children sleep peacefully without mobile phone masks getting at them. And no wireless in your house. Have plug-in. I put my internet all over my house, but it's wired in. Much better for all of us, and even I've noticed a huge difference. No cordless phones or alarm systems. Sadly, for most of our children, autism is only half the story. As was mentioned yesterday, it's 1 in 54 children in the UK are autistic. We have the highest rate in the world. It's 1 in 80 in the US. But one of the things that, we hear these statistics, and yes, Dr. Jepson's suggestion that we have a tsunami coming is so true. Because when you do the maths, these figures are doubling every 5 years. So by 2013 to 2018, the likelihood of any children being born who are not on the spectrum is quite slim. And that's a very sobering thought. So as was said yesterday, the powers that be had better watch out because, my God, they have a tidal wave coming and a tsunami that they are really not prepared for, and they better start paying attention to us. The other side of the coin, it's been mentioned a little bit over the past couple of days, but I wanted to really show a lot of you what it is because most people are not familiar. So 4 out of 5 autistic children now test positive for Lyme's, and it is congenital. This is a very different ball game, and it exacerbates and explains why, as parents, we seem to get our children so far, and then we plateau, and we don't understand why we're not getting there. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Lyme's disease. First outbreak was reported in Lyme, Connecticut in 1975. There's a little island off there called Heron Island, and during the war they did germ warfare on there. And after the war, They did not pay too much close attention to the security. The risk they didn't think was necessary. We're no longer at war. And of course, like all islands, the rivers go down and animals wander across and they graze on the grassy areas. And this is what happened around there. The deer would go across and naturally they would take their ticks and things with them, and they'd pick up other ticks from the island. Birds would fly in and out, and suddenly these things started to go over to the mainland. And the doctor there started seeing some very strange illnesses that he didn't recognize. And he went to the local powers that be and said, I think you better wake up, something's going on here. And they went, no, it's all incest in that area. And he said, no, I've been a doctor here for 30 years. I know who's banging who. It's okay, it's not. And they didn't really pay a lot of attention until a bit later. Willy Bergdorfer identified the first etiological agent as a Borrelia spirochete, and it is one of a number of them, and it is the most virulent, and it is the one we have to watch out for. For those of you who've not seen one, who live in cities, this is what a tick looks like. Very small, you wouldn't even notice it. And this is what a spirochete looks like. And as you can see, they're very wiggly, but I want you to pay close attention to what it's eating. And this is the reason why the majority of you, if you go and have a Lyme's test in a blood test, it will come back negative. The Lyme spirochetes live in the connective tissue, and they go into the blood, and they eat the Lyme's antibodies. And that is why the majority of you will come back with negative blood tests, because they eat the antibodies that tell the body or tell the medics that there is a problem. This is what they look like. How many of you have got children who do this? Why? They're mimicking the spirochetes in their bodies. And the spirochete will go from the brain to the feet in 2 seconds. They move like grease lightning. Here's some more of them. What can the clinical state of the infection mimic? Virtually everything you can name. Most of these disorders, if you look at them closely, have got Lyme's behind them. Dietrich says in the last 10 years he's not had a single case of MS, Parkinson's or ALS that is not misdiagnosed Lyme's disease. It mimics everything. So we don't need to go through them, but you will recognize the majority of things on there. Let's look at the transmission. Originally, the only form of transmission was regarded to be a deer tick. But now compelling evidence supports that human transfer is what's happening. Mosquitoes and fleas. We're no longer looking how to cure Lyme's. You can't. The rate of infection is about 99%. So we're looking at how we can bring it down in the system to a point that our bodies can cope and live with it, so our immune systems can support us. It's virtually every biting insect. And this was really, I was shocked. The why me, the guilt thing, why is my child autistic? And then I heard about the Lyme thing, going, I don't get this. And then I went, okay, I grew up with horses. I've been bitten to death by horseflies. I've traveled extensively all over the world. I've had sandflies biting me in New Zealand, been in the deserts, you name it, I've been bitten. So somewhere along the line, I'm a silent carrier. I've had Raynaud's, and Dietrich went back to his Raynaud's clinic 20 years previously. He found a couple of patients who are still alive, and guess what? They all tested positive for Lyme's. Sexual intercourse, blood transfusions, transplacental to fetus, unpasteurized milk, breastfeeding, food. It's everywhere, and we cannot ignore it. These are the bacteria that carry it, and this is what we're looking for. This is what we try and test for, and this is what we can test for with sympathetic resonance. We can have the frequencies of these things, so we can bypass the blood test in the first stages to actually get an idea of whether the patient actually has these things on board. Borrelia is the most virulent strain, and it is the one that is most likely to put people in a wheelchair if it is not addressed. Babesia is quite often misdiagnosed asthma. It likes to live in the lungs. Ehrlichia, Coxiella, Bartonella is often regarded as cat scratch disease and likes to live in the teeth. So if you've got teeth that basically appear to be decaying a lot of the time, it's not just that they've got shoddy teeth. It could be that Bartonella's living in there. And then, of course, we have Mycoplasma and the viruses, especially cytomegalovirus and Epstein-Barr. Dr. Andrew Wright, the medical researcher in the United Kingdom, believes that the majority of chronic conditions are Lyme-related. And this is where it is in the world. So really, you can't go anywhere. It's everywhere. I put this slide in from Dietrich because I think it's, without going through everything, because I think it's important that it's now been acknowledged that most psychiatric disorders have got Lyme's behind them. And Dietrich has a saying that if it's presenting like something that's in the mind, look in the body. And if it's presenting that there's something majorly wrong in the body, look in the mind. And never has this been more true with this one. And as you'll see, we have autism at the bottom and Asperger's. This slide, for me, the bottom one, is the most important. I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak about this from an informed position, but I trust Dietrich implicitly. He is a registered doctor in this country, in America, in Germany, and I think a few other countries. Undiagnosed Lyme's disease is rampant in the UK, and physicians making the diagnosis have been silenced by the GMC. When you think about how rampant it is and how much it's going to cost the insurance companies, you can do the maths. Some of what's in the arsenal for treating Lyme's. Some people are looking at up to 4 years to get it under control if they've got Borrelia and it's really, really, virulent. Other people may be looking at a few months. But again, a lot of the similar things we had before: freeze-dried garlic, phospholipids. We have various tinctures: Smilax, Stephania, Japanese knotweed, teasels, another one, cat's claw. MMS is controversial, but in some cases they've had excellent results with it. Quintessence, the rhizoles are very successful. But again, we're looking at not just the Lyme's, we're looking at supporting the whole body, because you have all of these co-infections going on, and it's really important. And again, get rid of the wires and the wireless, because you don't need a bacteria being given a 600% increase. No, thank you. Check out Lyme-induced autism. It's a site that Dietrich is partly responsible for. He set up this foundation because in response to the huge numbers of children that were now testing positive for Lyme's disease. And there's a great deal of information out there. If you go onto Dietrich's site, neuraltherapy.com and klinghartacademy.com, and I think he has a klinghardt.org, I'm not sure. But, just put Klinghardt into Google, and you'll also find a great deal of information that he has about protocols and information on how to look after it. So, this now brings me to the reason we're all here. The most important people in our lives are very, very special children. And I think it's important to look at perhaps another side of them, because they bring out the very best in all of us. They actually make us who we are today. None of you would be the characters that you are unless you'd had your very special child. They make us more patient to continue doing that same simple thing that brings them so much delight. They make you stronger mentally to carry on and soldier on where other people just wouldn't be able to go there. They make us stand up for what we believe in and be counted and not take no for an answer, and to really push for things that we believe in. We will not accept no for an answer. We will find a way. We get lawyers, we get barristers, we get groups of people together, and they stir in us something that nobody should mess with. They make us find a way forward. Their gift to us, when you have nothing left, they enable us to find the strength to give even more and change the sheets on the bed for the third time that night. They are gentle souls on the whole. They're not going to go out and be murderers and robbers and rapists and let us down and be put in jail. They are so gentle. They enable us to delight in the simplest and tiniest steps forward that most other people would take for granted. And they love us unconditionally. They enable us to find the highest pinnacles of our humanity. So let's just acknowledge the huge gift that these children are to us and thank them for what they go through every day, which turns you into the most incredible parents. And let us also acknowledge their siblings, those very special children who have to endure day in, day out the things that they do, for they too have a different journey to most other children. So go on, as parents, it's about time you give yourselves a really large pat on the back, because you have achieved and done more than most people could ever conceive or imagine. And finally, let's all stand up and give a huge round of applause for our children, and let's focus on their magnificence and not their disorders.